Hello and welcome to the channel. Today I'm Will and I'm going to be talking about a book haul. See, I always say that reading is basically two hobbies. There is actually the reading part is one and the book buying is another. So let's talk about the latter hobby today, the book haul. I haven't bought as many books in the last few months due to being at uni and a lot of the texts I'm reading. I'd rather read on Kindle so I can highlight them and do stuff like that. But I've still managed to accumulate some gems over the last few months, and I'll be talking about them today. And to kick it off, the holy grail of my collection now. I know you shouldn't have favourites. Just as Papa Gwyn says he doesn't have a favourite child, I shouldn't say I have a favourite book in my collection. But this has to take that spot. It is Malice by Papa Gwyn. So I'm a little bit biased, but I think I'd love it anyway. And I love this because Malice is one of my favourite books of all time, but look at this special edition by Grim Oak Press. And yeah, new cover, it looks beautiful, it wraps around, it's gorgeous. Also done by Marcus Winnie, who did the Bloodsworn covers, just a little Easter egg there. But inside there are 10 bits of individual art. And it has just been incredible to see the characters that I've talked about since I was about 8 years old come to life basically in these pages. We have classic moments that I won't mention because of spoilers, but it is just a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful edition, and it will be staying behind glass cages with a lock and safe that only I'm allowed to look at for now. But it is beautiful, and that is the book I'm proudest to add to the library over the last few months. And now everything else might not live up to that, but they'll be wonderful in different ways. And talking of wonderful, I've got Glorious Exploits, one of my favourite reads of 2024. It's historical fiction, it's Freddie Lennon's debut, it won the Waterstones Debut of the Year award, and for good reason. This story took me by surprise. I have Ed, my brother, to thank for the recommendation, and wow, I do owe him for this. It is a story set in 5th century BC. We follow two potters in Syracuse who just love theatre. And they want to stage some plays. And so the only way they think they can do that is by talking to Athenian prisoners and getting them to stage the play. So they're exploiting their position by giving food and drink to the prisoners in return for a performance. But they are also going to anger the locals who hate the Athenian prisoners. So there's a series of conflicts, but it's a small book, and it is one that I don't know how, but Freddie Lennon makes you so attached to characters within one or two scenes. You don't necessarily love them or think of them as the nicest people, but there's a way where he just, I don't know, he finds a level of exploring the human condition, and it's a way that invests you in the story so much. Some incredibly hard-hitting scenes here. There are some that really terrified me, which I think is one of the hardest things to do in a book, is to make you feel tense and fear. That is really hard to achieve, and that is done with Glorious Exploits, alongside laughter and tears. So we've got all three in one in Glorious Exploits, and I borrowed my brother's edition when I read it, and so I needed to buy my own copy. And I have, adding that to the library. And then I've always wanted to read some Sherlock Holmes. So I saw a deal come up and I bought the box set of all of them. So not really much more to say alongside that, but I think you start with A Study in Scarlet. Let me know if I'm wrong, but looking forward to adding these to the shelves. And then I've got The Unbroken by C.L. Clarke. I had the wonderful opportunity to get this signed. It says to the best brother Gwyn. So that's ambiguous because Ed might claim this book, but she signed it for me. So I have claiming rights there, and it will be staying on my shelf. Definitely not Ed's. But CL said she couldn't pick a favourite, so she made it ambiguous. And she didn't want to start a brotherly war either. And so there we go. That is The Unbroken. Really fantastic story. I read this in 2024 as well, and I cannot wait to carry on with the series. And then next up, I've got some more special editions, and they're pretty heavy. They could be assault weapons, so I'm going to lift them one at a time. And I'm actually showing them in the wrong order, but I've got Green Angel Tower, part 1, which, look at those edges. Look at this new cover. Absolutely beautiful. The Broken Binding have smashed it out of the park. And so that's book 1. Well, it's book 3 of Memory, Sorrow and Thorn. And then on to book 2, which is my favourite of the series, A Stone of Farewell, which, again, lovely new cover, lovely pages, and another hefty, hefty tome. And then, finally, we have got the Dragonbone chair, which might be my favourite cover of the lot so far. And yeah, and another page as well. And they're going to look wonderful on my shelves. I actually only read Green Angel Tower Part 1 and I never finished the series. I was 15. It was a crime not to finish and a waste as well. I read about 1,300 pages to then not finish it, which was very silly. So I do need to reread them at some point. I really enjoyed them. And as I said, Stone of Farewell, I remember being my favourite by a long margin. And it was really interesting to see many of the inspirations from modern authors now. I think in this kind of circle of booktube, a lot of people give that respect to Tad Williams, but on a wider level, I think he's not recognised enough for the role he has had in the evolution of the fantasy genre. But there we go, I need to revisit that fantasy series at some point, and what wonderful additions they are. Then heading over to some indie self-published fiction, we've got fantasy, we've got Ascendant, book 1 of the Songs of Chaos series. My brother Ed recently read this and he said it is so good. It is one you can fly through. It's one he wishes, it's one he'd recommend to a lot of people getting into fantasy. He thinks it kind of defies the genre in that respect. And he said it's not YA, but it is kind of simpler fantasy, a bit like Eragon. Again, it's really hard to categorise. I should have thought of this before talking. It's not YA, but it's accessible to all, and it is a great entry-level fantasy read, but one that veterans of the genre would also really enjoy, according to my brother. And so let's see if I agree when I read it. And also, I've got the others there that you'll be able to see in the corner of the screen. Book 2, Book 3, and a novella as well. And so I cannot wait to dive into the Songs of Chaos series. And then I have got the book I'm currently reading at the moment. It is A History of Britain in 10 Enemies by Terry Deary. I keep wanting to say Tom Deary, I don't know why. Terry Deary. And so I loved Unruly by David Mitchell, and basically I'd say this is a version that wouldn't offend people. David Mitchell, I loved it, but Unruly can be quite offensive. It's quite rude, it's quite extreme, but it's one that I loved and many people have loved. But I think if you're getting it as a present for someone, maybe see what relationship you have with them first. And this might be the safer bet to take. So educational, so informative, and so funny and witty and sharp at the same time. It's exactly what you want in a light non-fiction read that tells you a lot, really hooks you into different periods of history, and really kind of has a light bulb moment for me, letting me know what I want to learn more about beyond this. And so really enjoying it, and I cannot wait to continue. And then we're near the end. Well, by near the end, I mean, we've got about 5 or 6 left, but we're in the final third now. I also had the incredible opportunity to meet Tasha Suri. She is lovely, and it was so interesting hearing her talk on a panel with James Logan and Papa John Gwynn in Piccadilly, London. That was really a fantastic event. And I have read her first series, but I have not read The Jasmine Throne, which I think is much more popular and widely read than her first series. And yeah, The Jasmine Throne, I'd say, seems to be her most loved book as well. And I really cannot wait to dive in. I also got this signed, and I just, as I said, can't wait to dive in. So I've said that quite a lot in this video. And it is also such a nice cover. Orbit have a way with covers, and it also looks lovely on the shelf. How many times have I said that as well? I'm so sorry for people who just have to hear me say the same phrases again and again and again. But yeah, that is The Jasmine Throne. Really looking forward to adding it to my shelves. And then next up, I've got a book I bought in Durham, and that is The Sun Also Rises by Ernest Hemingway. I absolutely adored For Whom the Bell Tolls, and also The Old Man and the Sea. Ernest Hemingway, I don't know too much about him, but I know he's a bit of a controversial figure. But I love his fiction, and I do want to learn more about him as an individual as well. I really admire his approach. I think it was an argument between him and William Faulkner, where Ernest Hemingway said it's easy to write something that only you understand. The hardest thing is writing something that everyone will enjoy and understand. And that is really his approach. For Whom the Bell Tolls is a story that I think everyone can engage with, and it has such an emotional impact, and it has such depth as well, but not in a pretentious way that is just adding it kind of to explore a theme in a way which is, as I said already, pretentious. Ernest Hemingway does not fall into that category, in my opinion anyway, and I cannot wait to pick up The Sun Also Rises, which I've heard is a lot of people's favourite book by him. And it's also a bit smaller as well, and so I'm looking forward to diving into that. And I was trying to cut back on buying books, especially when I was at Durham for uni. But this just stood out to me and I had to do it. There was double points as well in Waterstones. It's dangerous and I fell into the trap, but I'm kind of happy I did because I've reordered my shelves, which I'll do a bookshelf tour at some point, but it perfectly fit where I wanted it to. So it was made to be. And then going to some non-fiction, I've got Henry V by Dan Jones, the Broken Binding Special Edition. They just bankrupt me in a lot of ways, but this is a wonderful special edition and I cannot wait to read it. I really wanted to get to it, especially I had a module at uni focusing on Robin Hood, and I was looking at kingship and leadership, and Henry V kind of falls into the model king of the Middle Ages for England, not to our modern contemporary standards, but in the Middle Ages, the expectations of a king, Henry V ticks a lot of them. And that might be because he might have died before his fall, because he was only king for a short period of time, relatively, and he died at his peak, many would say. And so, it says literally at the bottom, the astonishing rise of England's greatest warrior king. And Dan Jones, I remember him saying he didn't mean greatest in terms of morally, because I don't think any monarch of Middle Ages anywhere was moral, but with a lot of it centred on conquest, Henry V succeeded in that respect and ticked that criteria. So I cannot wait to read this. It wasn't in time for my Robin Hood module, but I'm sure it'll be relevant in the future. And also, I'm just incredibly interested in this period of history. And Dan Jones is a fantastic writer with his fiction and his non-fiction. So, of course, I'm going to dive into anything that he writes. And this will be the next one that I pick up. And then I've got two more, and they are early arcs that I've had the honour to receive that I can read before release. Book one is A Song of Legends Lost. This is epic fantasy. There are spirits and I don't know much more, but I know I'm intrigued. And also, for an arc, I really like those pages, which I'm easily pleased. And yeah, that hooked me alone. A lot of people say don't judge a book by its cover, but I kind of do. I won't let it be the only factor. For instance, I wouldn't let a bad cover put me off of a book. But if a book has a great cover, I'll let that be a hook for me. Another reason to read it. Because it does deliver a lot of the tone and atmosphere of the story inside. Or at least it's meant to. And I am hooked by that. Wonderful artistic delivery. And it's just awesome. So yeah, that is A Song of Legends Lost. And then last up, I've got another arc. And that is Blacklight Born, which kicks off, well, the series that starts with the combat codes. And I need to read Grievar's Blood, which is book 2, and then I'll get to this. Another one I've been sent early, very lucky to. And book 1 is very martial arts based, very unique fantasy landscape. And Alexander Darwin is wonderful at writing short, a small scale, conflict. And yeah, I'm looking forward to more. But there we go. That is my book haul. Please let me know some books you've added to your shelves. Let me know if you've read any of these. But for now, happy reading and thanks for watching.